Okay.
It's hard to find other.
Okay, let's watch. Okay, I found like something interesting, really interesting. My boy Matt Season. If you didn't subscribe to Matt Season, subscribe to Matt Season. Give this man money. This man is quite is really cool. Like you get to, especially if you love World of Warcraft. Like this man, this dude is doing God's work. Check it out. So why do people play MMORPGs solo? Some people that I know are playing like RPGs or like social games in general, completely solo, never search for like anything. This is interesting. A couple of people talked about it. I'm really curious to listen to the opinion and to the expose of Matt Season about this.
Mad Season here, back with another. Hey guys, what's up? Mad Season here, back with another video for you. There are two types of MMO players. People who play only because their friends are playing, and the solo player. This is quite a divisive topic, but having recently jumped into old school RuneScape with the challenge of trying to complete every quest blind, through the rules of the challenge, I of course have to take a very solo, single player oriented approach as to avoid any sort of help or spoilers, and I spread up some discussion on my channel about solo play in MMOs, whether that be people who are simply curious as to how I can enjoy such a social genre of game solo, or even as far as people saying I'm playing it incorrectly. So today I'd like to tackle the subject of solo play in the MMORPG genre, because I'm certainly not the only one. So the MMORPG is a very social genre of game, one of the most social possible in the sense that much of the content in the game you can't even access solo. You have this PvP mode, which requires a full team. The high-end rating requires not only other people, but also direct communication in order to overcome the challenges.
Yeah, and sometimes like vocal communication that is not like allowed in game, that you need to have a Discord for, so someone with a Discord server and stuff like that, which is like you think it's easy. I think that like back then when people used to have TeamSpeak, it was easier to connect with people rather than now, just because of how busy life became, you know, like.
Or maybe to make this weapon, you need a crafting reagent from another class, and the list goes on and on. It is true that the entire genre and its systems are largely designed with the thought in mind that they're to be experienced on a multiplayer basis, and it's been one of its biggest selling points, perhaps the entire reason to play them. Taking an objective look at it, the general gameplay of the MMO is very grindy and tedious, but because of the simple fact that it's multiplayer, everything is amplified and made to be more appealing. I've always said that with World of Warcraft's worldwide adoption in the 2000s, it became one of the very first forms of social media. A lot of people don't think of it like that, but I think it's true. You have these online communities, you have these cliques that form, drama that happens, these fads that start, guilds, social hierarchies, and you can always shitpost about politics with random strangers on the internet and, you know, threaten to kill them if they disagree with you. So it has all of the ingredients.
The typical, we're gonna swat you if you don't come to the raid. You don't come to the raid, we're gonna swat you. Come to the raid. You wanna see the SWAT team? Come to the raid. Not for real. I've got it's one call away. So you come to the raid, or you get swapped. You don't want to get spotted, right? So you come to the raid. Nice.
Radiance, because again, it is a very social game. But yet, even still, the game is filled with players who are guildless, their friends list is empty, and their only chat message is a typo that they didn't mean to send. So the question is, why? What is the appeal of playing this very social genre of game, but yet still interacting with very little to none of its players? Well, as it turns out, there are many reasons, starting in no particular order with the fact that a lot of it just comes down to having the option. And even if you choose to not interact with other players, their existence still adds value to your gameplay. And I think the best way to explain this is with a question. What's more appealing to you to play? An MMO world populated with other people of different classes, skill sets, abilities, and interests from across the world, or the same MMO on a private server where it's just you and only you? In a vacuum, for someone who doesn't really interact with anyone else, the answer is, well, it doesn't really matter, because, well, what's the difference if you're not going to interact with anyone? But yet still, for most people, this first option is much more appealing. So why is that? Well, it's because even if you don't interact with people, having the option to, and just having them in your world, adds value to your gameplay experience. MMORPG.
This is absolutely true. Even if you do not get like but it is true only like I think that like when it comes to certain genres, this stays true, but it doesn't have the same meaning. Whereas like let's say in League of Legends or Defense of the Ancients, Dota, well, basically you get the same option to always be able to interact with players, but it's not the same because like usually the interaction are like mostly like during times where like, well, it's more about like exchanging like information to try to win rather than being just have the occasion to talk randomly to strangers and to actually socialize with them, take part on a little adventure with them, you know. So but it is right, yeah.
These are massively multiplayer, and they're also RPGs, a genre of game which is built upon many pillars, one of the most major being character progression. And while in single-player RPGs, it can be quite rewarding to watch the story unfold and to see your character grow in power, one of the core pillars of the MMO RPG is that all of this progression is relative. This is especially true in the more theme park-oriented games, but your gear set is only as powerful as everyone else's on your server. Your mount is only rare because it's relatively rare on your server within your community. And
yeah, this was the case in the past. Now it's more like it's just rare in the globality of the server, you know, in the globality of the game. But times change, you
the
know.
same can be said with everything, whether that be levels, PvP rank, raid progression, achievement point systems, collections, and so on. And even if you don't interact with them, having the option to is still valuable and comforting. It just kind of taps into the core social nature that we have as humans. A lot of games have recognized this at this point, and they've implemented these seemingly pointless lobby-based hubs into their games. The game itself might rely on primarily a solo, or at most a limited few-player co-op experience, but yet still you have these areas and hubs where you can see strangers doing their own thing. You can't really interact with them directly, which leads many to the question of, well, what's the point of this? Well, the point is to tap into this fundamental social part of ourselves that lies within every person. And
you feel less lonely playing in this world, even if you never interact with other people. Just saying that like other people are living their own journey, and this is a quite important like thing when it comes to like MMOs, is that like well, if you get the chance, it makes like the world more alive, and it makes your I will say that like it's some sort of social anxiety. Well, like you see this huge world and you're by yourself in it, having fun in it, you know. Well, when you play in an MMO, you see this huge world and you see other people like enjoying it, and this changes a lot when it comes to like dynamics of like motivation and dynamics of just like self-enjoyment, because you do not feel in a forgotten land where like only you are the living person in here, right?
Maybe a little sprinkle of the bandwagon appeal where we assign value to a thing based on other people doing that same thing. But getting back to MMOs here, again, emphasizing this shared experience even if you don't directly interact with someone. Although it is true that the genre has become less social over the years, and we'll talk about that more later, it has been one of the major draws of the genre from the beginning, is that you are in this shared online world, and things that you do affect other players, and things that other players do affect you. That's an appealing trait. It's a much more dynamic and changing environment that's impossible to
Absolutely.
find in your conventional single-player RPG or on a private server of your favorite MMO. So point number one.
Yeah, and it's something also that you cannot find in FPS games, online FPS games, online MOBA games, where the problem is like you see other people enjoy. Yeah, but like it's not a journey. They enjoy the same like challenging moment of competition between each other, and not this like more steady journey where like you have your slowly paced like adventure, and they have like their own like story going on while you play, you know. It's not the same dynamic, it's not the same like logic.
That even if you're not directly interacting with other players, their presence has value and impact on your personal experience, which leads us into perhaps an obvious but still important point: dynamic experience and change. MMOs are still largely unique in the sense that, barring some sort of catastrophic scenario forcing a shutdown, they're RPGs without end. Think of your favorite RPG ever made. The story's perfect, characters are perfect, gameplay, minigames, world, every.
I am perfect as well in my favorite RPG. Like the way I play is perfect. My achievements are perfect. I'm the best. Okay, I'm the best. Listen to that. I'm the best. All right. You didn't thought? I'm actually I'm struggling so much in these games.
Everything from start to finish in every corner is what the kids these days would say is cinema, except for one thing: the fact that it ends. And eventually you see all that there is to see. And while some players love them so much that the first thing they do after finishing it is to start a new file, or perhaps speedrunning it, for most of the player base, it's the end of the road, which brings us to, again, another core pillar of the MMO, is that it's, of course, continuously updated.
Yeah, there is like this idea, like everyone heard this. You go to the cinema to watch a movie, and the movie moves you so much that like you get out of the cinema and you're like, oh damn, about my own personal life, I completely forgot, because I was so invested in the story that in this movie that I was watching. Well, basically, some video games that do this, and MMOs that don't, they allow for you to not have this. God damn, this was such a beautiful experience. I wish it didn't end like abruptly like this, because like there's two small depressions, you know, like you see with this movie, and then you get out of the cinema and you're like, God damn. And then you feel kind of like depressed for just because of how immersed you were in this in the story, you know, in your life. compared to that, like it's not that it sucks or like that like you're a failure, like it's just like it's moved you in a way that like really made you feel something that you really desired to feel, that you really didn't expect it to love so much, and to be cut out of this feeling so abruptly, you know.
The finish line is perpetually dangled in front of you like a carrot on a stick. Content in all corners of the game is constantly added for every type of player, whether that be the high-end raiders or PvPers or skillers, farmers, or questers. And with the genre being as old as it is now, another thing that's important to consider is that not only as the game changes, it's also the players. So a lot of the times it's simply a case of people finding a game that they like, and while they used to be more social, these days they're just less so. It's pretty common as people age and they establish their friends groups and so on.
It's more that like the gaming landscape has changed, and the way people socialize is not as innocent as it was before.
That they become less social in general, but yet still over the course of years or decades, the game itself has become this sort of comfort activity for them. It's a relatively consistent part of their routine that they can immerse themselves into and enjoy this familiar world, yet still with new, unfamiliar things being developed into them every day. And that's where their focus and comfort lies. It's more in the gameplay and the world rather than the individual people who inhabit it. Although, again, they're still important. Speaking of comfort, social interaction is rewarding and as fun as it might be, can also be draining. One of the many reasons why people can become less social as they age is that friendships and relationships do take a certain amount of commitment. If you fail to maintain them, they can eventually fade. And as the player base gets older and more responsibilities are being piled into our laps,
Yeah, it's also like that, like people like tend to forget that like MMORPGs are quite a fucking like time investment, and it's like, yeah, people leave. You know why? It's instant, like how much commitment like an MMO can allow you to have, you know, like. But it's sad. It's sad because it is this good to have like to be and to play with your friends in an MMO.
The idea of making new friends can become less appealing in the context of the MMO in terms of the higher end stuff like raiding. This means being available at certain hours of the day, on certain days of the week, and not only that, but also to perform well in your role so you're not dragging your team down, which is even more time of studying your class, rotations, boss mechanics, PvP matchups, and that's all fine if that's naturally appealing to you and that's what you want out of your experience. But what's undeniable is that it's a commitment, which means reduced freedom. So you can also see the flip side and understand just why a player might feel less social in that way. It's just nice sometimes to turn your brain off and dive into this comforting, familiar world with the option to interact with other people if you wish. However, with no obligations to do so other than your pure free will. Again, kind of getting back into the idea of getting value from the shared world, even if you don't directly interact with the people in it, while at the same time having the freedom to play as long as you want, as little as you want, as intensely as you want, or as casually as you want. Next, we have Occam's razor. The most simple solution is usually the culprit, and some people are just introverted, which is fine. I don't think it's quite a leap to say that gaming can draw a rather...
You know what? This Occam raises their argument that people are just introvert. Didn't saw it coming. It is brilliant that he actually like just tells you, yeah, people are introverts. That's why. Wow, the Matt Season is really good at what he does. He's really passionate on this one. Like, it just shocked me by how clever what he said is. Yeah, some people are just introverts, man. I would have thought about it in a couple month cycles, to be honest. Like,
introverted crowd. It's a hobby that you can
I don't think I'd ever like came to this conclusion about why some people don't socialize in MMOs. I got them. It helps to have like a different perspective, you know, when it comes to your passions.
playing by yourself at a base level that doesn't really require any type of social commitment. And MMOs are very appealing to introverts because they're a very casual way of getting some form of social interaction. It's a genre that can attract a lot of introverted people. And the thing about introverts is that sometimes, well, a lot of the times they just want to do their own thing, which again is fine. And I'm speaking as an introvert here. Sometimes they'll engage with others if they want, but a lot of the times they're just grinding XP with Netflix and the other monitor, or listening to some monotone fuck who's obsessed with MMOs. And next, we also have the fact that the genre today is just made to be more single-player oriented.
This is true as well.
This particular subject,
Yeah, this is true as well, and this is a good part of MMOs because, like, as someone who my favorite game and what will always be my favorite game will be World of Warcraft. Do you know how much joy it brings me that like new players can come in and have their like adventure within like my favorite world and my favorite game without ever needing like this much like social without ever needing to be socially dependent on someone else, and they get to enjoy all the stories that I enjoyed, and they get to enjoy all the gameplay that I enjoyed without ever having to bother someone and feel bothering someone, that they bother feeling that they are like a bother to someone just because they need to do some to progress on their own like on their own like story, you know.
itself is its own whole thing that's probably video worthy. We'll just get into it a little bit here, but it's undeniable that the MMO today, compared to its formative years, is a far less social experience. Just using World of Warcraft here for an example, since that's what most everyone is familiar with. You of course have things like dungeon finders, raid finders, group quests being phased out, mob tag sharing, trade skills interacting through work orders instead of direct trades and communication, and even things such as AI teammates. And this is the source of a lot of frustration for some people. I mentioned earlier, this is quite a divisive topic, and this is one of the main reasons.
Yeah, but like by now, like the spectrum of customers within like games such as like Final Fantasy or World of Warcraft is so large and varied that like, yeah, it's a problem for others. Yeah, but like it doesn't constitute some sort of majority because of how rich the spectrum of different types of players is within World of Warcraft or Final Fantasies this day.
Is that developers a lot of the times can cater to these solo players in destructive ways. Instead of providing ample solo experiences, sometimes they take what were once cornerstone features of the social nature of the game and mold and transform them to be more accessible for the solo player at the cost of the game's social atmosphere. And while all of that is understandable, I think that the frustration is ultimately misplaced. You know, it's the developer's job to understand the genre like the back of their penis, and because it's a multiplayer game, that any small change they make can have this huge butterfly effect. There's a very tricky and special balance and understanding not only of the genre of the game that you're working on, but also the ever-changing player base who plays it. It's far from an easy job, but you know, that's what they're paid to do. And even then, a lot of it is out of their control due to things such as the previously mentioned aging, less social player base, or things like everything surrounding the game stifling its social atmosphere. I think that people can tend to get tunnel visioned on the game itself and its design, and sort of neglect the fact that everything surrounding the game has also changed. I mentioned earlier that World of Warcraft was one of the first forms of social media back in 2004.
Yeah, I made so many friends back then, and in World of Warcraft. It's such a shame that I always was a kid that like like to like just like keep on reinventing myself and like just like tell myself fuck everything, fuck everyone, I'm gonna like start a new life. And then I lost all these contacts. I don't even have like memories of that man, friend. Like such a shame. It's life, but it's such a shame.
Yeah, back in 2004, which was still when the genre was largely undiscovered, and over the course of the past 20 years, the player base has become increasingly more and more familiar with the genre itself as well as each specific game. They're more skilled, they're more knowledgeable. Third-party database websites and social media platforms have full guides of new features and class rotations and optimized play before they're even released. So one of the reasons why there are so many solo players today is because the world outside of the game has removed reasons for it to be social. It's sort of sucked them out like a vampire. For every person who finds an optimal class rotation on YouTube, that's one less person asking in general chat how to increase their DPS, which removes a critical opportunity for social interaction. For every person that's chatting in a class Discord, that's one less person chatting in the game. So again, if we're trying to pin blame on people and on these solo players for having a negative effect on the social atmosphere of the game, you can see it's a very complicated situation with
Yeah, it's a complicated situation that is way like that has way too many actors to just like back then it was more easy to pinpoint and to just like being able to target to just like notice what does what, who is what, like what type of actors do what. Like now it is, and luckily enough it is rich enough where it's like so much stuff is going on. If you only knew. We know what it means kind of like to the game and to the social aspect of the game, but to be honest, like we are like it became like too rich and too complex to be able to just like have problems that are like solvable because if this happens then do so, and no, now it's just like, but it's because like of how great in the community is and how rich it is, how numerous it is, how big it is, how numbered it is, whatever.
many things to consider. So it just doesn't feel all that fair to point the finger at the boomer who just wanted to log in, turn their brain off, and farm some mud crabs outside of Relica after a long day of work, while he watches his kids and tries to keep them from swallowing Legos and painting the dog so his wife doesn't divorce him. But all this being said, solo players are still a core and integral part of the MMORPG genre due to the simple fact that they exist. Them playing and being in the world and being a part of it adds value to everyone's experience, even other solo players, and even if they never speak a single word or interact with one another. I myself have been on both sides of the fence. At the very start, I mentioned the two types of players, the soloer and the person who only plays when they have friends on. And at first I was really introverted until eventually I made friends and I joined a guild, at which point I was on the opposite end of the spectrum and I would really only play when my friends were playing. Oh. And now today I would say I'm kind of leaning more towards into solo play, as MMOs are definitely a comfort activity for me. I do think that both types of players are uniquely
Plus how my friends have quit. No wonder. For you, same here.
important to the genre in their own way, and I hope that this video helped the more social players see the different side of things, and hopefully for the more solo-oriented players, maybe this helped you articulate the reasons why you play this way if you didn't really think about it as autistically as I have. But let me know what you think. I like making these MMO videos because they always spark interesting discussions in the comments. Let me know if you have anything to add or if I missed anything.
I have something to add. Subscribe to Matt Season Show. Look at this videos. He is quite the man, the legend, the myth. Yeah, it does really good content. If you love World of Warcraft, like just give this dude a chance to fucking like rock your world, you know. Like he is quite it is such a chill experience to just like enjoy what he does, enjoy who he is, you know. So yeah.